a big outcry on what's going on. Here we are coming in once again, played out by the bankers, and I even know that we were talking about just prior to the interview, the fact that one of the banks today was basically, or on Friday, they felt that they weren't going to be in any challenging trouble because a decision was going the way of, it looked like, the bank, because the judge said that they had to have at least 25% collective action against a bank in order for this process to be challenged, and the banks essentially could continue to foreclosure. So what happened? Let's explain that. The Attorney General's office worked with some certain other entities, put together more than 25% of a group, and went back after the bank. And so, you know, I guess the big concern at the end, and this is for all the taxpayers, American taxpayers, and this is probably a fascinating case study for people in all the other countries around the world. The problem is, in the end, it ain't going to be the banks who end up having to pay for this. It's going to be you, the taxpayer. Now, in the first instance, when we bailed out the banks, I was actually okay with it, because if we didn't bail out the banks initially with TARP, what would have happened? We would have went into a depression, and that's what would have happened. No liquidity in the system. But I got to tell you, my appetite for any more bailouts is pretty close to zero. And there has to be accountability this time. And these bankers should be on the line personally, like they are in other countries around the world, for these completely intolerable decisions. And this is where they can continue to make these type of decisions, they continue to do these type of actions and issue huge bonuses, because in the end, there's no accountability. They're not tied to it personally. They can walk away from it. So let's take this now to where it is today. You got Joe homeowner out there, and he's looking at, okay, well, my house is going into foreclosure. And I haven't been able to make payments for 2 or 3 months. What are my options? Right. Well, let's talk about, just for fun, let's talk about some of their options right now.
Well, we'll throw some fun and reality.
Yeah.
We'll use Nevada, a good example. Yeah. Any judiciary state, Nevada's a non-judicial state, but if you, in Florida or any of the other 23 judicial states, you have to go through it in front of a judge, and there has to be the correct paperwork, usually the original deed, which sometimes they can produce it, sometimes they can't. If they can't produce it, then they have to file other paperwork in order to show that the debt is theirs. If the original note was lost, and you have one creditor, it's fairly simple. But with the sale of all these mortgages several different times, sold to numerous people, it's very hard to track. So let's go back to Nevada. And many people say that if it's a non-judicial state, this doesn't concern them. Well, many of these non-judicial states have put in programs that almost make it a judicial state, because you have to bring in similar paperwork that you do in the non-judicial. For example, in Nevada, they have mediation. If you're an owner-occupied homeowner and you get a notice of default, you have 30 days to challenge it in mediation. Now, when you go to mediation, you have a mediator, the bank, and the homeowner. And you have to bring the note, you have to bring the paperwork that shows you own the debt, and the correct paperwork. Now, that's very similar to a judicial state. If you don't bring the correct paperwork, they postpone it. Because you can't foreclose in Nevada on an owner-occupied homeowner unless you have the correct paperwork, and you have to deal with them in a fair manner to modify their loan, to reduce the principal, or whatever could help keep the homeowner in the home. And who decides? The mediator decides if the bank is dealing in fair play. If they are, then, and the homeowner still cannot afford the home, then they are awarded a certificate that they can foreclose on the homeowner. Well, if they don't get that foreclosure, if they don't get that certificate, they can't foreclose on them. So all of this is now tied to one person gets to decide, if it's an owner-occupied home in the state of Nevada, if that homeowner can get foreclosed on. And right now, there's some 3,000 homeowners that are in mediation purgatory, or foreclosure purgatory, which means they don't have a resolution to their loan, and they don't have the certificate, the bank doesn't have the certificate to get foreclosed on. And that number is rising and rising. That doesn't include the 4,000 to 5,000 people that are waiting for an appointment. The average time to get an appointment is 4 months. The first appointment, usually, the bank doesn't have the correct paperwork because there's a stringent list the bank has to bring. Or they don't have it, they can't find it yet, they haven't had it, so it's another 4 months. So now you have a homeowner that's in that house 8 months. So that's, who knows how many months the homeowner wasn't paying before that. Then you have that other 8 months. That's cash flow that the mortgage-backed security is expecting, that's not getting. And there's no end in sight to when they're going to get that money, because they don't have the paperwork many times to produce that.
What's their strategy then, Steve? Because we have a situation where we've got a lot of homeowners out there, and there's a big new thing that just a new word, another new word that's come out is the word strategic default. And we got a lot of people out there, especially in Nevada. The shift that I've seen is a shift from socially unacceptable to socially acceptable to strategically default. And I got to tell you, in the state of Nevada right now, it's amazing. A big part of the spending that's probably happening in GDP in the state of Nevada is people who stop paying their mortgages completely to the banks. The banks would far rather have someone living in that house so they don't get all kinds of HOA fines and everything else. Have someone live there, allow the market to recover in the minds of the banks, and then they save all this extra money and spend it on other stuff. And there's people I know in the state who are well over 2 years in their house now, and they're still living in there, and they're still saying, well, I might have several more months, and, you know.
Years.
Well, yeah.
Let me ask you a question. If somebody gets foreclosed on, who wins? With the current accounting, the current government policies, and the current homeowner situation, when someone gets foreclosed on today, who wins?
I love it, because now the interview's back here. Basically, if we look at a scenario like that, what happens? No one's going to win in that scenario, because the banks, what the banks want is, and I'm going to call a spade, people who think a loan modification is a good thing, no. That ain't the way to go. Let me tell you, you get caught in a loan mod program, what's going to happen is you're going to make those payments for 3, 4, 5 years, and then at the time, and it's probably going to be interest only, in 3, 4, 5 years, what's going to happen is the bank's going to say, okay, we gave you the loan mod program, now the economy's improved a little bit, we sucked some payments out of it, we're going to recapitalize your loan, and you're going back to the old payments, bye-bye, adios, get the hell out of our house. And so be very, very careful on the loan modification program. I'd strongly urge, and I think a much better way for people to go is if they go for a short sale. You know why? The banks are going to absolutely crave and have to accept short sales now, because if they go for the loan modification program, or homeowners are challenging them everywhere, they're going to be absolutely buried. But a short sale, they get a big loss. They slowly move the homes out, but they start doing accepted short sales. That's the way to go. This guy's the expert in short sales. As a matter of fact, let's put in a quick little commercial for you. He's speaking November 9th at the Orleans Hotel in Las Vegas here, and at 7 p.m. he's going to start up and he's going to talk about the short sale process. So that's definitely an event that you should come out and see. 7 p.m. Orleans Hotel, name of the organization, Las Vegas Real Estate Club. He'll be speaking.